walking and cycling is not a poor man's thing. It's not that someone says this is Jama Meshiwa. No, it's actually extremely beneficial.
But if you look at our roads, there is no substantial or proper provision for NMT facilities, so that people have to squeeze and fight for the road with the cars.
And when you walk, it's so healthy. When you cycle, it's so healthy. I think here is where we need a lot of awareness to be created, because what we need is cooperation by everybody, by saying we can actually share the space.
I want to see how this NMT policy fits into the greater national policy in terms of efficiency in transport.
And I'm looking forward to the day when we'll have the structures out there in the streets where we can ride our bicycles in the middle of the town.
If you could allow me, I would like to move quickly so that we can get into engagement and ask Henry of CARA, the CEO of CARA, to make his opening remarks.
Mine is very short today, just to welcome you to this particular forum today. Just by a show of hand, how many people came here today either walking or by a matatu? Just put up your hands. There's no shame on that. You either walked or used a matatu to come to this place, or even cycled, because we also have cyclists. I think it's half the room from the hands I've seen. So that is basically why we are having this discussion today. There's something called non-motorized transport, which for the countries that have understood what the benefits are, they've decided to put a lot of investment in that particular aspect. But I think as a country, that is Kenya, we are still not very much appreciative or on track in terms of appreciating the benefits and why we must invest on non-motorized transport. In Nairobi, for instance, roughly 50% of the population, they walk or they cycle to their work, to their businesses, or when moving around. But the sad part of it is that we have not seen a commensurate level of investment on making sure that these people are able to move freely and are able to go about their businesses without competing for roads with cars. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to stop at that and ask my colleague Kali to come and also address you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Henry. On behalf of UNEP, I'd like to start by thanking you all for attending today. This is such a great turnout for such an important event. I'd particularly like to thank the Ministry of Transport and NTSA and CARA for co-hosting this workshop with UNEP. At UNEP, we believe that a prosperous city is a city where individuals can move freely and safely, and that applies whether you're 8 years old or you're 80 years old or 90 and everything in between. So if you are carrying a Gico full of water, or you are cycling to work, or you're using a wheelchair, or you're a child with autism, or everyone deserves to be able to walk freely and safely. And that's really the essence of why we're here. For so long we keep focusing on building for cars. And even when we talk to our colleagues, the development partners of the governments, and even where we say, yes, we're investing in NMT, it's not enough. Because last year, 500 pedestrians died in Nairobi. Out of 700 total road fatalities in Nairobi, 500 of them were pedestrians. So no matter how much we pat ourselves on the back and saying we're already investing in NMT, we're not investing in NMT. Because if we were really, then those 500 people wouldn't have died. So what we've got to do is stop investing in building for cars and start investing in building for people. And as soon as you make that switch in thinking, you realise that the majority of the people are walking and cycling. And as well as doing that switch, we need to stop talk. I'm so bored of talking about policies. Even though I work for a policy organisation, I'm fed up of talking about policies. Kenya has so many policies and plans. We need to just start putting our money where our mouth is and start investing in walking and cycling facilities.
because she reminded us we stopped building for vehicles and we build for people, isn't it? And that if we are doing enough, why should 500 people die from our actions and so on, yeah? And that we should shift from policy to investing. I think those are extremely powerful bit. And the fourth bit which I picked from her was that we need concrete actions. Now I think, Munyao, it will be your turn. Welcome to talk to us.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols observed. Thank you for the organizers of this important workshop. We have a huge challenge in our cities, and particularly in Nairobi, because half of the pedestrians that we lose across the country are lost in this city of Nairobi. In fact, the reality is that the risk of being knocked and killed by a motor vehicle is more than double when you are living in Nairobi than it is when you are living in another city or urban setting in the country. Again, on the same line, we are working together with insurance companies to tie in the issue of insurance and the issues of training, and for them to take a proactive action and ensure that they do not issue license to motorcycles if they have not been satisfied that the riders indeed have been trained.
Thank you very much, Munyao. I think he spoke from his heart, isn't it? But then, more importantly, he then moved on to tell us what they are doing. And you could clearly see that this is an authority that is becoming sensitive to the obtaining issues and so on. And I think that was very good. And now we can move on and listen to Martin. Again, we are told, we need to be talking to government, national government, transport. These guys have done, they did a lot of work in policy. But implementing that seems to be a challenge. But I'm sure Martin will he'll tell us the truth. Let's put our hands together and welcome him and encourage him to address us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ageve. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm happy to be here with you this morning to discuss this critical topic of non-motorized transport in the country, and Nairobi in particular. It is very critical that we share the concerns that are there. There are a number of programs that are lined up of ensuring that we have these facilities and we use them. But when it comes to issue of sensitization, probably the programs that NTSA have may not be adequate, and that requires that we all participate. And to ensure that we have good knowledge on how to use the road safely, the ministry is actually coming up with children's park in major cities or in major towns. Where we have them in place, Kura has put measures in place to ensure that school children are sensitized on how to use the road safely. The idea here is that when you learn how to use road safely, when you are young, you are likely to carry that habit, to grow with it. Until your adulthood. So thank you. I hope we are going to have very good recommendations and very good actions on NMTs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martin. And of course, he has said he's looking forward for your sharpening the policies and those suggestions so that they can move to the next level. So perhaps we shall ask Elisha to come and share with us some of the things that he found out, some of the lessons, because the policy was made in a participatory manner, so we believe, but Elisha was commissioned to find out to what extent that happened. Let's put our hands together as we welcome engineer to share with us. Karibu sana. There was a campaign by the border people. Actually, they are called the riders. This is gaining currency in our city. Most people are avoiding their cars. And one of them said that he saves 30 minutes if he uses his motorcycle in doing his business. So that is one of the benefits. The lesson learned. The NMT policy making requires a heavy political support. In some parts of the world, leaders have come out robustly to associate with the NMT issues. It requires sustainable funding commitment accompanied with a dedicated team working daily on the NMT issues, and the input of an experienced consultant is key to a good quality document. The information exchange is very key to faster conclusion. Coordination of the process requires a committed promoter armed with financial muscle and ready expertise to support the process. The process requires heavy data collection, analysis, and deduction to present a convincing perspective to the stakeholders. The stakeholders need to be level-headed in debate to have a consensually negotiated product. Final product needs comparative analysis with the current global trends. We are not an island as a nation. So whatever we produce, we must subject it to what is happening elsewhere. So all of you who are here, let us be proactive citizens. This is our mother nation. Thank you. So let's now move on. Now it is opened up. We've been hearing from here. Now it's your turn to start questioning and asking and making some comments and so on. The only caveat is that please don't give us a lecture, yeah?
If we allowed people to cross at street level and we allowed vehicles to go over the ramp or underneath, like in most countries, then that's going to be much easier to achieve while we work on social engineering. And I think we need to think more about that in terms of non-motorized transportation.
We have challenges in terms of vision on the road. I am yet to see a boda who has glasses, and I'm sure many of them have vision problems.
In Nairobi, as you walk, the pedestrians and the motorists don't respect the traffic lights. And I squarely blame this on the law enforcers. It's a simple thing. Work a Mariam on the traffic lights. If the pedestrian does cross when they are already stopped, it should be then done. Similarly to the motorists.
The footbridges, I loved what the engineers have mentioned about having the cars going over and people crossing down. If you observe all the footbridges in Nairobi, if you're pushing yourself in a wheelchair, you'll roll and probably sustain injuries because the inclination, the gradient is too high. But I rarely doubt that these are things that are taken into account or are thought of when this planning is done. And again, even the accessing of those footbridges, yes, it's a ramp on one end, but how do you get there? There's always a very steep step. So someone on a tricycle, someone on a wheelchair, someone who's visually impaired, like my friend Mugambi, cannot even bathe themselves. So I'd want us to even, as we're looking at NMTs, to think about these people whom we really consider when we're making these plans. And a simple way is also to engage them during their planning.
The issue of education, again, is crucial, but it's important to segment this education before, during, and after, because ownership is very crucial for compliance. Sometimes we put structures and we tell people from tomorrow, you're using this structure, but you have not prepared them. They have no information why I should use this structure vis-a-vis the way I have been crossing for the last 30 years. So education is crucial, but it's also timeliness of that education and the nature of that education that will help with the compliance.
Okay. Thank you very much. You can respond to any of the issues raised as you find No, sorry.
Thank you. My response is really in relation to some comments that came up from Professor Francis Faith from Handicap International, Bright, and a few others. I really think we have to work out how to change our mindset. We need to prioritise, one, the most vulnerable people in society, and B, the majority of people in society in Kenya. And that both of those groups take you to people who are walking and to an extent cycling. And as soon as you start prioritising the vulnerable and the majority, it takes you the step forward to put infrastructure in place that's convenient and easy to use for the majority. And that's the people who are walking, not the people who are driving. So why should I as a pedestrian have to climb up 40 stairs on a footbridge and you as a car user could just get to drive as you are at grade? We need to start focusing as much as possible on at grade crossings. And actually quite often they're more cost effective. They use a lot less materials than building a footbridge.
Training of drivers and eye test has been taken care of in the new curriculum. Part of the process includes a requirement for such kind of tests, particularly for professional drivers, people who drive for a living. The issue of the question of traffic control management, I think this is multi-sectoral. But what I know is part of the challenge we have been having in trying to automate and synchronize the use of traffic lights, particularly in Nairobi, is the absence of a proper control center and also the need for particular databases for vehicles. On the issue of public awareness and education, I agree that we need to invest a lot more.
There's always a price of being on a high table, isn't it? Yes.
These interactions like the one we are having today is very useful to us because they are issues that may not have been considered. But when they are raised like they are being raised now, then they are considered.
And I want everyone to realize that when you hear survey being done, kindly try to participate. For example, when you see a road has just 2 lanes, it is a result of the volume of the vehicle it is expected to carry.
Excellent. Don't sleep and then come and complain later. The tea is served here, it was prayed for. So if we can shorten that, then we can have more time on the floor, yeah? Could we try and make it within 15 minutes so that we are back here by 20 months?
So the policy proposed an integrated approach and an inclusion of all transport systems, so that we are saying, as the County of Nairobi, on all road infrastructure, you must have, at minimum, you must have the walkways. And depending on the available road reserve, you must also have the cycle paths. The NMT policy benefits were accessibility. There are 3 of them mainly. Accessibility. Improve affordable access to vital services. It saves lives and money. In terms of environment, reduce greenhouse gas emissions and air pollutants. Improves resource efficiency and land use and energy. Then in terms of safety, protects vulnerable users through proper facilities, improves safety for all road users, and minimizes conflict between the motorized and the non-motorized transport.
So please, when you see this advert, like our colleague said, come and let us talk together so that we can be able to develop a city that we all want, and especially the NMT side.
So at the University of Cape Town and in collaboration with Carly at UNEP, we have created something called NMT PAT. It's a tool that starts to look at these costs and benefits in a data scarce environment and tries to value projects more holistically. We are starting to look at the environmental benefits, the health benefits, the economic benefits, and these social benefits that people describe but can't really quantify.
We also need to finance NMT because of accessibility. You see, like in the photo there, you see some school children trying to squeeze in between the traffic. But since this is mainly because we don't have the infrastructure, correct infrastructure for non-motorized transport. So if we invest in NMT, then we are going to improve the accessibility for the vulnerable groups.
Thank you very much, Susan. That was good.
But I want to believe, like Steve believed, that if you solve NMT issues, you have not solved the transport problem. If you solve transport system, you cannot have solved it adequately without solving NMT.
We realize that matatu industry is the biggest sector in the public transport. And through our work we are coming up, we did a research among the drivers and conductors on their perspective of the signage and NMT. And we were surprised to realize that, when we found out that 80% of the drivers and conductors, they actually know what the signs mean, what they're supposed to do, but they literally choose to ignore them. Two main reasons. Pedestrians are wasting time. They're out to make money because they pay themselves before they give the owners the match for the day. Then two is that, apart from slow, is that they should have used other options as if they're doing the pedestrians a favor.
You have seen how we get stuck on the roads. Yet you are trying to save a life. And when these roads are being constructed, we are never consulted. They tell us, like Thika Highway, they told us, you see, once the road is complete, the emergency services will not be a problem anymore because you'll be able to take your patient as fast as possible and save that life. To the contrary, you will find so many ambulances stuck there. Even Jogo Road, I get stuck many times because I drive the ambulance. And it is very sad when you lose a life that could be saved by getting proper lanes or services.
Ambulances and then the grassroots networking. Now some response. Yet can just go across.
Us at UNEP, we're trying to do two things. One is contribute to that wider discussion on urban mobility, like my colleagues in Habitat, and also try and get NMT and road safety investment to catch up. Once we feel that it's caught up, then we'd be very happy just to look at integrated transport systems. The other thing I want to mention is, following on from Sean's presentation, I'd urge all stakeholders, but particularly the development partners we have in the room, so people like JICA and the European Union, and also infrastructure organisations like Trademark, please, please, please come to the training on the 10th. Because if you come to that session, you'll be in such a position that you can then use that tool as you're trying to justify why the NMT investment is needed. Finally, on sensitisation, I would urge the media and the civil society groups in the room, please don't wait for money from the government to do sensitisation. Please have a look at your existing organisational structure and the work you're doing on the ground, grassroots work, media, radio, and work out how you can already start integrating some sensitisation activities in your day-to-day work. Thanks.
Good. Use already what you have now.
In my presentation, I did not inform you that the city is actually also investing on lighting on the NMT facilities. So the other thing that came up was the issue of security concerns on the bridges, and we look into that.
I think it has been, for me, a very interesting day. I think a lot has come through within that period. And now, Kali, you want to report on behalf of your colleagues?
Thank you. So, to start with some recommendations from this table on ideas for actions. So, with regards to Nairobi City County Government, some things they're already doing, working with the public transport operators on improving their operations, including things like service standards, but also including now NMT awareness. Setting up a public transport committee to include NMT representatives, so pedestrians and cyclists, proactive planning for roadside activities and road reserves for all users, and to actually go ahead and adopt the NMT policy officially through the Transport Committee before the end of this year, as well as see through on all the commitments they gave us in their presentation. Then for some work for NTSA and Ministry of Transport to review all road legislation to update and integrate NMT facilities and considerations, to undertake an NMT audit so that we have a baseline in place for all roads in Nairobi. So where we have facilities, where we have some facilities and where we have nothing, so that going forward there's a prioritization of construction of NMT facilities. And quite importantly for Ministry of Transport to have a discussion on setting up a national NMT budget, so there's an actual ring-fenced amount of money so it doesn't get swallowed up in the wider road construction budget.
And I think I just want to start by recognizing the good work that has been done by Mr. Gavin. Let's clap for him, please. He's taken us through the session very well this morning, and now we are coming to a close. And I must say it has been a productive session. Have you learned anything? And now the journey is still continuing. Like I said, I think there's still so much work to be done. We are going to realize this whole agenda of NMT. So you'll still be hearing a lot from us on the action areas, what we need to do, the kind of support we expect from you. So when we call upon you, please don't get tired, because at the end of the day, if we have the things that I talk about here in the room being action, we'll all be happy.
The major objectives of seeing how the NMT policy will work and its integration, I think, has been achieved through the various contributions. I'm a little bit not sure of how the political will come out, because we need also the government, the politicians to push in the policy to now to become legalizing.